This is the design that we're working on today, and I'm going to start with that stem using the 839 in brown. At the very top, you're just going to fill that little underside shape with a satin stitch. Very simple, just a few stitches from side to side, and then while you've still got that thread on your needle, you're just going to pop out there and we're going to fill that stem with a chain stitch. Now I've just laid down one little stitch first because I'm doing the reverse chain stitch. I'm going to bring my needle up about 1/2 centimetre away, thread it under and then pop back in there, and then again 1/2 centimetre away, slide it under those last two stitches, or that last chain stitch, sorry, and then continue all the way to the bottom. And at the bottom, I'm just going to add one more because I actually want those stems connecting together. So I want them to touch. So there's just one more chain stitch that I'm going to squeeze in here. Now we're going to do the leaves, and I'm using the olive color 734. And by now you must be pretty familiar with the way that I like to do all of my leaves. Yes, most of them are done using a fly stitch with gaps in between. I like those gaps because it adds lovely texture and it still shows that olive green color underneath. So if you know how to do the fly stitch, you don't have to keep watching till the end of this. You can just go ahead and fill all of your leaves with the fly stitch. But it's pretty simple. If you want to close up those gaps, I think I said this in the previous video, you can actually make them a little bit tighter and it sort of fills the whole leaf solid. Our little blue circles, you've probably guessed it. Well, first of all, we're doing them in the 503, the light blue. But yes, they're all done in a satin stitch. And just a reminder that every shape is split in half first with one stitch, and then you add the stitches to one side and then to the other. Let's do these stems now, and we're back to the orange 976, and I'm going to be using a back stitch to fill them, but these little ones here, they're so short, we're just going to do a single stitch on those. So I'm starting at the top there, and that's the back stitch. I keep my back stitches fairly small on these particular designs. I think the texture of a small back stitch looks quite nice. So we're just going to fill that all the way to the bottom, and then from this point I'm just going to start the next stem straight away from there, and then when I get to the top of that one, I'm just going to jump over and start the next stem right there. And here are those single stitches. They're nice and quick. Right, still using the orange, this is called a basket weave. And if you've never done this before, it's not actually hard, it's just a little bit fiddly. The first thing that you have to do is lay down stitches in a horizontal pattern, and you need to leave little gaps in between those stitches so you can see that this is not like a satin stitch. I'm actually bringing my needle out at the same side as where I put it in, so it's not like a satin stitch that wraps around the back. So there are our horizontal stitches, and now in a different color, and I'm using the brown, I'm now going to weave right through the center, in and out, so over under, and then I'm going to stab that needle in at the very top to secure that stitch. Next, I'm going to bring the needle out nice and close. Now this time you want to close those gaps, and you're going to weave in the opposite direction. So this time you're going to go over, under. Again, stab your needle in at the bottom there, bring it out again nice and close, and again weave in and out. And you're going to keep repeating that. Obviously, we're going to do one side first. If you find that your stitches are a bit too far apart, you can just give them a little help with the needle, just squish them up a little bit, and then continue to weave in and out. So we're filling one side first, and then we're going to come over to the other side, and you're going to fill the other side next. These petals at the top are nice and easy. We're just using the red number 22, and I'm adding a single lazy daisy on each petal. Now you can see that the lazy daisies here are actually quite long. You don't have to make yours that long. You can make them a little bit shorter if you want. However much of the petal you want to fill is absolutely fine. And of course, if you want to use a different stitch, that's fine too. But as you can see, just one lazy daisy per petal. Okay, this flower at the top is next, and we're back to our orange 976, and I'm using a leaf stitch. Note where my needle goes in. A lot of people start their very first stitch too small, too far to the top. You're going to come out on one side, 1 millimeter underneath that center stitch, and then you're going to come out the other side. So this is really just left, right, left, right, left, right, but make sure that you're keeping your stitches nice and tight. So this should act almost like a satin stitch, except it's being laid down sort of from left to right, repetitively like that. So you'll do that one petal, and then from this point, you're just going to come straight out onto the next petal. And then we're going to go straight into those little side petals that we're going to fill with a satin stitch. So we're just going to do, like always, divide the shape in half first and then fill one side, then the other. This is a very easy little feature that we're going to add over the top of those petals, just a single brown stitch on each petal. Now this center shape here, I just added a row of French knots. This is the red number 22, and the row of French knots, I just laid it in that arc shape at the top. If you want to fill that whole shape with French knots, go for your life. And then while you've still got that red there, we're going to add a pistol stitch, which is kind of like a French knot with an extended single stitch attached to it. That's the best way that I can describe it. Next, we're moving on to the other flower, which is on the right hand side of your design. And once again, those two front petals are going to be filled with a leaf stitch, exactly the same as before. You're going to fill one side and then the other. And remember that your first stitch needs to be quite deep. Mine is almost halfway down. And then, as you probably guessed, the other two little petals will be filled with a satin stitch. Same as before, we're just going to add one single stitch on the left petal and the same on the right. The center of this shape is treated in the same way as the previous flower. I'm just adding a row of French knots on the left and the right. And again, while I've still got my thread, I'm going to add a single pistol stitch into the center. Now this flower and this flower are stitched the same. In the bottom part here, you're also going to do a basket weave, but you're going to use red and brown instead of orange and brown. And then the petals will be done the same, but in orange. This flower and this flower are stitched exactly the same.